Welcome to the Honest Property Podcast. We're your hosts, Becky and Ruth, and we love talking all things property investing, business, and the entrepreneurial journey. And today we have a very special guest, Julie Talbot, who we found on Instagram because is exactly the kind of person that we were looking for when we were on Instagram. That I don't know about you guys, but someone like Julie is difficult to find, but her lifestyle that she's created for herself is so inspiring.
And for her family as well.
Family, and just, it's everything we also selfishly want for ourselves.
But you don't really find this online. And so we're just so grateful for Instagram algorithms for bringing Julie to us.
Guys, I mean, what you guys are doing, like, when I came across you, like, wow, this is just like a breath of fresh air, what you guys are doing.
So Julie, okay. Do you want to share yourself, introduce your background, and
share your story, like the story of how you got into what you're doing?
Okay. So, we are right now we're in Chiang Mai in Thailand. I guess you would say we're nomads. We live nomadically these days. We used to be expats before that. I say that we are expats. So when I say we, it's me and my husband and our twin daughters. So we world school our daughters, which kind of means they don't go to school. Before that, we were expats and they did go to school. And way before that, so 2009, before we had children, we used to live in the UK. So I've been growing the portfolio from outside the UK since 2009, really. So on and off in some of that time, been growing the property portfolio in the UK from outside of the UK.
Wow,
that's insane. So you basically moved because your husband's work was outside of the UK.
So 2009 was a crazy sort of time. It was, the financial crisis and all that sort of stuff was going on, and we were, had contract jobs, and we just sort of thought, let's look for work outside of the UK. We wanted to travel, and we sort of thought, getting a job outside the UK will be a way to do that, right? Because when you live in a different country, different places become weekend destinations. So we did a global job search, 19, and we kind of just, with his work, basically, we decided to move with his work rather than with my work. And he was an engineer. And at the time, all the jobs were in the Middle East. And it was a bit crazy, really. I think we flew over in the July and he had 4 job interviews. And in the September, he started one. So I'd started buying property that year. So the grand idea was like, I bought a couple of houses this year. And we lived in London. The houses were in Manchester. I'm from Manchester. So the big idea was like, I was going to step out of corporate and carry on growing the portfolio from the Middle East. Like, how hard can it be?
Wow. That's just,
I love how you've got, like, your plan was, okay, one of you's going to focus on investing and the other one's going to have that job that's going to bring in that income whilst you're investing at the same time. That's just like a great,
perfect partnership.
That was the plan. Things never go according to plan, right? And I guess my background was like process management and stuff like that. So we moved out to the Middle East. And when I say how hard can it be, like I did a couple of purchases. It went horribly wrong, like just awfully wrong. It was ridiculous. And after about 18 months, I just stopped buying property. I literally didn't talk about property for 7 years. So from 2010 to 2017, if somebody around me was talking about property, which a lot of expats do, I'd be like, it's nice. Where's good? Where are you going on holiday? Like, I just changed the conversation. I wouldn't really talk about it because I was so, just because of what had happened. So it was only in 2017 that I then decided to take a bit of a concrete pill and figure it out and restart.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, do you mind me asking, what was the thing that sort of put you off of it?
Yeah.
Back then?
So, a few things happened. So the first, I bought into a few myths, I suppose, that I'm going to talk to you later. But I first of all thought, I'll just fly back to the UK and like view some houses and then fly back to the UK and oversee the refurb. And I mean, I don't know why I thought that'd be a good idea. It was totally ridiculous. It was just, so I did that and I just thought, this isn't scalable. Like, I don't want to be doing that again, flying all the time. And I just thought it'd be impractical, like when we had a family and stuff like that. So then the next thing I realised was, well, then, you need to work with a sourcing agent because everyone was telling me it's hassle-free and it's hands-off and it's, everyone does everything for you. It just didn't work out, and the deal I ended up with took a long time, well, 10 years basically, to turn it around and make it right. So after that I was just like, oh my gosh, it's just gone so wrong, and I didn't really want to repeat that. And then we started to look at new build off plan things, because that's what everyone else was saying was so easy and hassle free and all this kind of stuff. And yeah, it wasn't. So at that point I was just like, I just stopped and hid under a table property wise for 7 years, and didn't really start talking about it again for 7 years. Like, lost 7 years is the way I see that.
I know, but I'd say not really. You learned a lot of lessons in 7 years. And I think if you hadn't have done any of that, I mean, we have our fair share of lessons learned through investing in property. And I think like it wouldn't allow us to be doing what we're doing now if we hadn't gone through all those really expensive lessons.
Definitely. And I think those things were, I was believing some of the stuff that I was told, right? Oh, now you're overseas, you've got to do it this way. Right, okay, so I've got to do it this way. And it's like, well, you don't have to do anything any way that you don't want to. But it's, sometimes you've got to do the thing the way that you're told, to be like, no, it's not me.
But what I also love is the resilience that you had to still continue. Even if you had a 7-year gap, you still went, I'm still going to do it anyway, because that was the plan. That was my plan. And you are doing it.
Yeah. And it's I don't know, I think not everybody wants to travel and be outside of the UK and things like that. And I think sometimes travel is seen as the thing that you do afterwards. But, like I said, moving to the Middle East, it meant that we got to scratch some of that travel itch. Lots of different places become weekend destinations. You can nip to India for a long weekend, or you can pop to Nepal for a trek for 5 days, like places which would be a really significant time and cost investment to go from Europe, just become like short jaunts. So for quite a few years, being an expat or living in a different part of the world, even though my husband was working, allowed us to live and travel how we wanted to. So expatting is a really great option, I believe, for people who want some location flexibility. And be able to travel more while still learning.
I think people, when they start property investing, they're like, I want time and location freedom, and then don't forget how to actually do that for themselves, or accidentally fall into the trap of now all their time and location is very dependent.
Guilty. This is exactly what happened to us. I know we were in our 20s when we first started, but we always wanted location freedom, and that ended up taking up the back. What's the term?
It was delayed.
It was delayed. We kept delaying it, started another business, delayed it. And what you're saying is that it's completely possible to have it at the forefront from the very beginning.
Yeah, it's like, I think we're just told so much that the path that you're meant to take through the freedoms is you get financial freedom first. Then when you've got financial freedom, then you make all the changes and outsource and everything and do what you need to do, and then you get time and location freedom. And that is one route. It really is. But then you basically start off with one business and have to turn it into something totally different to get the time and location freedom. So that's one route. And I'm just like, well, what if you want the time and location freedom first? You've just got to design that business that you end up having to design anyway, and do that first. And possibly it means you go slower, right? That's totally fine. But then you're living the way that you want to along the way. And maybe it's a bit, maybe it's a bit boring. Maybe things are going slower. Maybe you could do more. Maybe sometimes you've got to say no and turn the laptop off at 2:00 because you're going to pick the kids up from school or whatever. It's all within our control if we want to put those two freedoms first and enjoy that whilst then you're, scaling to the financial independence.
I think we can really resonate with this because in the last year, well, for a long time we've always been entrepreneurs and have been investing for the last 12 years. And it was something that we kept putting as the back burner, but also we just didn't know how to. We thought that success was what was continuously hustling and trying to fit this mold that what success looked like. And we realized we were moving further away from what it really was. And ours was really simplicity, location freedom, and to be able to just enjoy life that way. It was never the material goal. It was always the location freedom, and life tells you a completely different narrative of what that's supposed to look like.
Yeah, we're meant to be busy and we're meant to be, just doing lots of things. Things have got to be perfect, and they just don't need to be like, you know what? Quite often, 80% is okay. We don't have to strive for perfection, and we don't have to be busy. Like, it's okay to say no to things and to let opportunities pass to focus on something else. Like, just there's that whole ethos of time is more. I'm going to get it wrong now, aren't I?
Time is more. I know what you're saying. Yeah.
You can get more time, so you can get more money, but you can't get more time. And like, your kids' childhood and your time in like, certain seasons of your life, it passes, but you can always focus on, your business or income at different times of your life. So for me, it was being able to do the school pickup. It was being able to take the kids swimming after school just spontaneously. It's been able to bake cakes whenever we want to. And, those are the things that are like are my measures of success, as well as being able to do the property stuff as well. But they're both equal. It's not like one, the one takes precedence over the other.
I don't know if you're listening to this podcast, Ruth and I are bobbing our heads like crazy for everything that Julie is saying.
Because we've gone through this whole psychological whirlwind. Like, I have a 3-year-old now, but I battled this. What is success? What is success? And just like to be able to see you in real life, like, well, not real life, like over digitally, it was just so refreshing to know that deep down, what screams in our gut, actually other people are doing this, and that is like our success. It's true, it's real, and that it doesn't have to look like every other person in the property industry,
what their success, like so many shades of wealthy or how you grow it. But I also feel like with you and your family in different like immersing yourself in different cultures, it's also just broadening your mindset to how to live a slower pace of life compared to where Western societies, like how we operate.
We're never satisfied where we are. We're always looking to the next thing. But from having I guess more of a globalist mindset, you're able to like factor space to be able to think about how you want to live presently.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it in that way, but yeah, it's beautiful. Just being able to observe different cultures and different religions in different countries and how they live. Like, living in the Middle East, in the UAE, where it's a Muslim country, and just understanding how being able to observe how things get done there. I think it's a privilege to be able to travel and go to different countries and spend time in different countries. But one of the crazy things is that when you're living nomadically, because you're not on holiday all the time, from a cost-based perspective, actually, it's in some ways can be quite a cost-effective lifestyle.
Yeah, because you're not just spending. You spend more when you're on holiday, don't you?
Yeah. So if you're not on holiday, if you're living in a place, so we tend to slow travel rather than fast travel because we tend to spend at least 1 month in each place, sometimes like longer, quite often longer. Occasionally we'll do like a flurry of travel, and we've been living this way for 3 years now. We don't tend to do the things that you would do if you're on holiday. So it's more about finding your favorite coffee shop, finding your food places, and things like that. And yeah, it just becomes a totally different cost base because you haven't got a car, you haven't got the utility bills, you haven't got all the different financial commitments that you have when you've got a base in one place. You pay your Airbnb fee and all your outgoings.
Bills, you have no liabilities, really, do you? You're not tied down. Gosh, here it's annoying. It's like everything's a 12-month contract, and you just why? Who knows? I don't know. I want to be 12 months time.
Yeah, totally.
What a freeing way to live. Like, a lot of people say to me, how are you renting? Because I'm a renter.
Yeah.
How come you have so many like properties, but you don't live in any of them?
You don't want
the lifestyle I want.
But then you also go, oh, is that not a success then? Is that not success if you don't live in your home? But we don't want to.
Yeah, because then you've got the flexibility. And I think this is really a really interesting time in the property market as well. Like, when people are choosing to want to live like this, isn't it a great time for landlords, right? And to be able to provide long-term accommodation to people. So yeah, it is a really interesting time that as humans we're moving to live more people are moving to live more nomadically.
With your investments, are you investing in the long-term rentals? So that what's yours? Do you have a diverse portfolio, or is it mainly for families that you rent your properties to?
Yeah, so we do a combination of family lets and HMOs. We've tried other things over the years, but that's just what tends to be most comfortable with and fits best for us. We do a lot of social housing and supported housing, so that's sort of like where we've niched into over time as well.
Yeah, I feel like we are quite similar.
Yeah, they are. We dabbled in service. Well, dabbled. We did a full-on service accommodation business. We need to realise that didn't align with the lifestyle that we wanted.
Yeah.
It's very demanding.
All these things, I think there really is there is no right or wrong. I know that, not many people want to live nomadically, and for some people doing HMOs would be a nightmare and all those sorts of things. But I think it's just beautiful that, we're all so diverse, and some things that are simple for you and me, that are difficult for us, like service accommodation, somebody else can totally boss it, even if they are thousands of miles away.
Yeah, and I've seen people do it.
It's great that we all find different things simple and not simple, and enjoyable and not enjoyable, because anything and everything in property works. The hardest thing is picking the thing that you want to do and focus on it, and ignoring everything else. That is the absolute hardest thing, I think.
Yeah. And I think the main, a big lesson with you as a role model is, what lifestyle do you want at the end of this, and then work backwards. That seems to be what you've done so well. And if it doesn't fit into, if it's a nomadic lifestyle, then it probably isn't meant to be for you, because it's just not going to be realistic with what your end goal is. It's not that it's your end goal, it's like your now goal.
Your now goal. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe end goal should just be scrapped.
Yeah. It's like end goal seems like, and then you get there and it's
never going to happen.
It's never happening.
It's this chapter, isn't it? It's like, whatever season of our life that we're in works now, and then there'll be a different chapter in the future. So, things are always going to change, and being nomadic, it works for us. It works for us right now. So we're just kind of enjoying it while it works.
And you homeschool as well, don't you? Would you homeschool or use a program?
Homeschool suggests sit at home for a number of hours each day and follow a curriculum. When we set off travelling, yes, we did homeschool.
World school.
We were bringing the kids out of school, and it was important that, we felt it was important just for us, like everything was changing. We thought we need to keep some sort of routine. So we followed a curriculum for English, Maths and Science. But then after about 18 months, we just we probably got on our stride a bit, to be honest, with the lifestyle, and following a curriculum just then, after that amount of time, felt a bit rigid. We were in some crazy places, and we were like, we want to be learning about volcanoes on Jeju Island, not learning about Irish folk stories. Not that there's anything wrong with Irish folk stories, but that was on the curriculum, so that's what we had to do. And I was like, we want to learn about whatever all these rocks are outside the window and these 30 volcanoes that we can see. So we let go of the curriculum at that point, and that was 18 months, 2 years ago now, I think. And the kids now, I would say, some might call it unschooled, so some might call it world school, but they basically follow their own curiosity and learn about things that they're interested in.
I love that.
So it feels a bit bold, but as humans, we're all naturally curious. If you take away the stuff that you're being forced to do, for a while you might not do something. But then after all, I'd be like, okay, well, I'm really interested in this. I'm just going to read about it and research it, because
kids are naturally curious about everything, and sounds like you're just encouraging them. If there's a spark of interest in a particular area,
then they can focus more on it. Yeah, we've algorithm also likes throwing us more world schooling things on Instagram, and there's one we were just saying on another podcast, and one of them is called Boundless.
Yes.
And it's like, I don't know if you've ever done that or just seen the idea of it. And I think it's just a perfect way to involve the family and children. And if you're living a nomadic life, to kind of get the best of everything without that school structure. Because personally, I looked out the window a lot of the time when I was at school. I was not engaged.
Yeah. So you follow the curriculum, but you can't remember it. But then if you are able to choose what you're learning, then chances are you
will remember it.
You remember it more, yeah. And then when you've got the time, right, when you're not following the curriculum, then with the time that you have got, then you can do, I don't know, just crazy things. So one of the girls, like me, and one of the girls is working on organising this hub meetup for the families in in January in a part of Malaysia, and both the girls will end up being involved in that and managing the communications and replying to questions and WhatsApps and messages and all that. So because they've got the time and the headspace to be in that, because they've not got a curriculum to follow, and that's, I think, is a really valuable experience, being involved in organising this like event for other families to come and explore an area together.
It's real life. It's real life things, real life skills. So I think, real life skills actually that are useful.
And the girls, I mean, gosh, they get involved in the property business as well. Like, strategically, they're like, they're advisors or comment on things, or practically they're like, one of them's helping me furnish one of the properties at the moment, and will be,
Because this is education that they need to know, and we don't get taught this. I'm so glad you're doing this with your girls. Like, we had to pay a mentor who'd done it to know.
Yeah, and we didn't have that education from our family. None of our family invests in property. It was just like, we're the start of it. So really, so nice to hear that you're
getting your girls so involved in learning how to look after an asset. And so your lifestyle now, does that mean you get to be quite present in your girls' lives with the type of schooling that they do?
But also because you self-manage as well, don't you, from afar?
Yeah, so we've got our own, by self-manage, it's not like I do everything, but we've set up the internal capacity so that we manage the lets ourselves, kind of thing. So in terms of, how present we are, it varies depending on what we're doing. So at the moment, we're on like a 1 month hub. So the girls are like in a program every day, which is brilliant because they're learning new skills, and there's lots of social and there's community and things like that. And sometimes at the total other side of the scale, we've spent like 3 months on the side of a mountain with no one around us apart from bears and wild boar. And it's just like the four of us, doing our thing every day, and, walking in the forest or doing whatever. And sometimes there's like, there's places in between. So, we are, really present, and just getting to explore wherever we are together.
That's beautiful. I love that. Is how family is meant to be, instead of just being passing ships in the wind and, the parents off to work. Or I watched a YouTube video actually the other day, and it was a family who decided to go on a nomadic lifestyle because their kids were at school, so they weren't seeing their kids whilst they were at school. And the mum and dad, or the dad, had to work late to be able to afford like from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And the wife was just like obviously taking care of the household, doing part-time job, and then looking after the children. But it was like everybody was just missing each other.
Everyone was doing their own thing 100% of the time.
And family, especially for us, is such a top priority. And what a shame to miss your life together.
Yeah,
because you've made yourself busy.
Yeah.
And that's that you make yourself busy. You can make yourself unbusy if you really wanted to, by figuring out the systems and how to do it like you have.
Yeah, and it's saying no to things as well sometimes. I intentionally chose not to do a corporate job, or I chose to work 18 hours a week instead of working 30. Sometimes it's saying, for me, I've had to say no to things which might have been better financially, because it's like, well, I want to use my time to do something else, and I can't make more than 24 hours in the day. So therefore, got to say no to things. That's hard sometimes, isn't it?
But do you see it as, like what you were saying before, money comes and goes, and at some later on in another season of your life, then maybe you might want to commit more to that part. But right now, your children are your priority, and spending time with the family unit is your priority right now. And you've made it work. Like, I personally believe in that there's seasons. Every decade is very different. And then your energy goes to one slightly differently than it did the decade before.
Yeah.
And do you feel like since having kids, that's really made you more assertive of saying no to things?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, when we lived in the UK and, sort of like early in my career, I was with my husband then. He was, we weren't married at that time. And there was one sort of like phase where we drive to work together in the morning, and I would have my laptop out, be doing work in the car on the way to work. And then, it was totally ridiculous. Then I'd come home in the evening and I'd work till 11 o'clock at night. At the weekend, I'd be so exhausted that, we probably go anywhere doing things. I was just so tired. It was just all about work. And I think somewhere in there, I kind of realized that really wasn't healthy. And then if you wanted a family, then that wasn't the type of family that we kind of wanted to be. And I was making choices to do all that stuff. So yes, you have got to, seasons of your life are very different. And I think, like you said before, sometimes you've got to do something to be like, yeah, this just doesn't feel good or right. Like what changes can we make here?
Yeah.
So it sounds like you used a sourcing agent before. So I'm just thinking of how you streamlined being able to do this remotely, and you do it yourself instead, identifying the properties. Does this mean you spend a lot of time on Rightmove, or you've got a separate system to be able to identify properties easier or faster? How do you do the viewings? There's so much physical, you'd think there's so much physical presence required, but is there anything you can share about how you manage to do that remotely?
Without talking the next 5 hours about how to do everything. Viewings is like, viewings for me, figuring out how to be able to get a viewing done remotely and without over relying on one person. Because what I kind of observe is that a lot of people will find one person, a friend or a family member, to do all their viewings for them, and then if they they begin to feel obligated, and then it can get unbalanced. That's not really a scalable, sustainable way. For me, once you figured out how to have like a process, a scalable way of being able to view properties without over relying on one person, and knowing that you can get viewings done in lots of ways. We might buy one property, but you probably got to view 5, 10, 15, 20 to be able to get one, right? So your viewings is the thing that happens lots and lots of times, whereas your conveyancing and your refurbs, they all happen once, if we think of the cycle. So for me, once I figured out how to get a viewing done consistently without me being there, without having to hop on a flight, I was like, well, hang on a minute. If we can do this, then actually everything else is solvable. My background was in, my corporate background was all in like process management and,
skills. These are great skills.
It really is a case of, it's like, I'm going to just pick an analogy. I haven't actually used this analogy before, but I'm learning to crochet at the moment. Not very good. But if you just started to crochet, you'd make a right old mess of it. But if you had like a pattern and you followed the pattern, then you'd actually get something that you wanted. But there's loads of patterns that you can follow. It's just a case of following one. So there's loads of ways to get. I
love that. Simple.
Without jumping in a car and doing it yourself. It's like all things. You need to have a form. You need to have multiple people to ask. It was one of the things actually that I've answered this question so many times. I actually recorded. I didn't write the book, but I recorded a course on it, because there's so many ways to get viewings done. But once you've got a way of being able to get viewings done your way by somebody else, then it just feels really good. And if you've not got to spend an hour on the phone briefing somebody, if you can do it with a flick of an email and there's multiple people you can ask to do it, then how is that any harder than working with a sourcing agent? If you've got the interest in property and the passion in property, and you've got a little bit of time, if you're working with a sourcing agent, you've still got to do stuff and reply and do due diligence and things like that. So if you've got a system for viewing, then you can source for yourself.
I love it. It's because you know the system. You have a checklist, I suppose, of this is what I want you to look for.
Yeah, and it's saying no to things. There's a gazillion ways you can source property, isn't there? You can do letter writing, you can do auctions, you can do this, and it's like, right, okay, so choose one way and say no to everything else. I used to do letter writing because that's what everyone tells you have to do, right?
Yeah.
I did it for a year and hated it. It was just awful. It was just, and we had a system set up for it and everything. And then I gave myself permission to not do letter writing. And some people love it. Some people absolutely love it. And I've helped some of my mentees, I've helped them set up letter writing processes that they run remotely. And it's great. So you can set anything, we've put man on the moon as humans. We can do anything we actually choose to do. We've just got to have the idea and then do the thing. And some of the things we just don't like. And that's okay. So I gave myself permission to stop doing the writing system, just turn that all off. I didn't really enjoy the conversations, that you have to have. And it took too much time to have those conversations. And with the kids and everything, I personally found that too unplannable. You jump on a call with a vendor and you can't say after 2 minutes, right, I've got to go now because I'll want to get back to playing with the Play-Doh. You kind of needed to commit to that call. And I didn't want to outsource that call to somebody else. I felt that was the valuable bit. So yeah, I stopped doing that. But like I say, it works beautifully for some people. But yeah.
I love that. You take an idea and then you make it's simple, a simple manual to make it actually effective. Like, just keep it simple.
Yeah. So there's no one right way to source. But for me, the key is, out of all the different ways that we all get taught on property courses to source properties, just choose one of them. And that's quite hard to be like, okay, well, I'm not going to go for auctions. I'm not going to do letter writing, and I'm not going to, do Facebook ads. I'm going to do this one thing. It doesn't mean that any of those other things don't work. They all do work.
Yeah.
But when your time's limited, you've got to choose one of them, because then you can spend the rest of your time playing with your kids, or volunteering for the charity that's important for you, or going to the gym, or, sitting in your pajamas watching Netflix, like whatever the other thing is. If you've said no to all the other things and just focus on the one way of sourcing that you want to do.
I think when in society we're taught to just say yes to a lot of things, and it's just refreshing to say no.
Maybe it's like a FOMO, fear of missing out. Like, what if this way is better than the way that I first picked? Maybe it does involve a little bit of dabbling in all the different ways of doing things, and then seeing what feels good, what is not taking up so much of your time, or where you've got like more skills in, where it doesn't feel like it's so much effort, and then just stick to that one thing. To be really frank, Ruth and I just go straight to Rightmove and Zoopla, and we don't have any other stuff.
We know it works for us.
Exactly. But then, and that's totally fine. I prefer to go to Rightmove at the moment, but it means, people will be like to me, Julie, I've got a really great deal. And it's like, right, but I don't want to see, because if I take on your one really great deal, then I've got to do an exception process to assess that, rather than the thing that I usually do. That's going to take me more time. So it's actually, I'm going to say no to the shiny penny and just do the really boring thing that I usually do, not and it doesn't mean that any other things are wrong. It just means that you've got to have like laser focus on your thing and be like, oh, great that somebody else is doing something else. And it really is hard to stay focused and to say no to all the other things. But I go to analogy in my mind, like, if you're walking down a road, the only way that you make progress is if you keep walking forwards and keep doing the thing. If you keep going backwards to a point and going, 110 meters left and then back and then 10 meters right, you actually never get forward. So it kind of, you've just got to commit to the way and ignore the other things.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. We resonate with that so much, because last year we just went off track.
But that's how this was all born, to be fair. We were like, we just need to have conversations with people just like you. Be like, let's just keep it real. Boring is fun when you're not, it's better to be better to have something simple that appears boring that's actually just bringing you what it is you actually want.
Yeah. And the more I find the more you repeat something that you've done before, the better that you get at it. Because any of the property strategies work, right? They all work. But if you do one thing 10 times, you're going to get better at it. If you do 10 different things once, then they're all going to be really hard. They're all going to take loads of time, and you're going to be quite exhausted. But again, it's like, it doesn't matter which one you choose, just choose one and then repeat that.
Yeah.
Which is boring.
Yeah. So you're helping other people to do the same now. Have you been doing it for a while?
Yeah. I've been, for a few years. I've kept a little bit of time ring fence to help to do some, coaching and mentoring, sort of like one-on-one. There's a few different things that I've recorded, like some courses on, like the viewings for me was like, because that was the thing that helped me be like, right, well, if we can view a property without flying back to the UK, then flip it out. We can do the rest of it. Viewings is the thing that you do most. So, and I realized that when I was talking to people about viewings, each time I'd miss something out, and I'd be like, oh, damn it, I didn't tell them that thing, and I didn't tell them that thing. And like, I met one lady one day, and she was like, the next day flying back to the UK for the weekend. She'd organised childcare for her daughter, and she'd like got a hire car to drive from the airport to the house that she wanted to view, and then here in a hotel overnight and back, and it was costing thousands of pounds. And I was like, my God, I can really help you. Like, you never ever have to do that. But right, we need to just record this, because I've done the whole flying back to the UK thing, and you don't need to do it if you don't want to.
But that's why you have so much knowledge in this area, because you've actually gone through all the hard lessons.
Yeah.
We've been through that thought process. We're like, okay, we're going to leave and know we have to come back. That's probably when Instagram was like, here's Julie. She's going to fix it.
But I did it. I flew back to the UK, and I was just like, this is... And I got to feeling like I had two lives. I lived in the Middle East, or, was in the Middle East, but then I was flying back to the UK all the time. And whilst it was, on the one hand, it was good, but there's like, I really feel like I'm actually not based anywhere. I've got these two lives. And I just thought, I don't want this to be my life, but it's just not, it just isn't going to, it work. It just isn't, wasn't scalable for me. But some people in a different season of life love that, right? Some of the people who, like one of the people who was a client, I did some mentoring for her, and because her children were older, she'd love to be able to fly back to the UK, and because for her season of life, it fit in really well. So like I always say, there is no right or wrong. And when I work with somebody, we have this like concept of, let's design your virtual property machine, like the one that works for you, like based on the type of freedom that you want, the type of lifestyle that you want, and the season of life that you're at. And no two people's virtual property machines. I always see like in my head when I say that, I see like the cogs that all fit together and the conveyor belt underneath and how fast that conveyor belt goes. Like no two people's machines are
virtual property
put together in the same way. But I kind of see my role as like, right, I'll help you put together your machine and we'll get it humming. And then, you've then got your machines that you can scale your portfolio as the years go by. And it's totally, it fits with all of your requirements. But
you're a genius. Like, you're amazing. I'm a genius. Shere's the recipe for freedom. Like, if you want actual location freedom, you have to be in. I think Ruth and I have just banged on about how people start property investing because they want freedom, and you don't have to be in it. You don't need to fall into accidentally falling into the trap of being stuck in it. But Julie's deciphered like a brilliant way of doing it remotely and has recorded it for you. So we're gonna put Julie's link to that workshop in the show notes so that you can have a watch.
Just to wrap up as well, we want to say, could you break down again one more time what the myths are when it comes to being a nomadic investor?
Yeah. Oh gosh, there are, again, so many of these, right? So many things I've been told over the years, and I believe them at different times. I suppose the first, some of them we've covered, but just to summarize, the first one is like, we're told we have to have financial freedom first. And then once we've got that, then you can get location freedom and time freedom. And this, I just think, is a really dangerous, dangerous to buy into, because we are all different. And for some people, yes, that is the right path. But for some of us, like, we would be much happier if we chose time freedom or location freedom first. So stay at home, who grows the portfolio. You can stay in the UK, or be the traveller who grows the portfolio from a mountaintop and work 6 hours a day on the mountaintop. Those paths are totally possible. You just need, your machine is then going to be different to somebody else's. That's totally it. So, you've got the FIRE mentality, the financial independence, retire early, like that's totally fine. And I know it serves a lot of people. I tend to more think about like location independence first. So location independence first, and then earn whilst exploring. So like I see that as life, LIFEE. And like I would rather choose life, so I just think
I love that.
The second sort of myth is, and I brought into this, that you've got to be on the ground. You've got to look into the whites of people's eyes when you're negotiating. You've got to be on the ground to source properties. Like, you just don't. You need to be able to have a system and a routine to be able to find properties, whatever that might be. There's a gazillion, we all know them. But just have your routine and have a solid process then to be able to find your properties and view your properties. And then, I think COVID proved to all of us, didn't it, that we can do anything from wherever we want to be. And don't forget, we put man on the moon, right? So this is not rocket science. So we can definitely source our own properties if we want to. So yeah, the third one I suppose is when you do move overseas, people will say to you that I found now you're overseas, you've got to do it this way, or you've got to do it that way, and you've got to work with a sourcing agent, or you've got to partner with somebody, or you've got to buy a new build off plan. No, it's all just a myth. Like, you've not got to do anything. You can choose to grow your portfolio the way you want to. You can choose to put your machine together to give you whatever you want to. But it sounds so logical. Like, oh, I'm overseas, I need a hassle-free way, therefore I've got to do this. Like, these blocks go on top of each other, and you just it can be true, but it really doesn't have to be true. And the fourth one, oh my gosh, and I've told myself this, and I speak to many people about it. There's this whole thing of like, if I'm not there, things are going to go wrong. Like, I need to be there. And I just think, ask, and I'm sure you've got loads of stories, ask any UK investor who lives like a mile away or 100 meters away, like, do things still go wrong? Yes. Go wrong. It's like a child learning to walk. A child learning to walk falls over because things go wrong, right? Children fall over when we're learning to do anything. And I think if we accept that things are going to go wrong, whether we're there or not, then it's
still going
to
to happen. It doesn't. Yeah.
It's like, well, they're going to go wrong anyway. So do you want to be 100 meters down the road, or do you want to be, overseas and handling it? Like, you being there, or I know me being there doesn't mean that the things that are going to go wrong.
If something is wrong, and like with the plumbing, I'm not going to fix it. The plumber will still fix it, and I could have asked them to do it. They don't care where I am right now. Could be from anywhere.
But the thing is, it's an easy thing to tell ourselves, like, it's because I wasn't there, it's my fault. And it's an easy thing for other people to say, well, it's because you weren't there. Like, it's because you weren't there. And then we go, yeah, it was my fault. No, right? Like, it's never the reason. There's always a cog that was wrong, or a process that wasn't in place, or maybe, there was something else. So it's more important to understand what was the thing, like the actual root cause, and then fix that root cause so that the thing doesn't happen again, and learn from it. But just when things are going to go wrong. So if things are going to go wrong, I'm always like, well, try and respond to them with, fascinating, it's gone wrong, rather than, oh my God, it's all gone wrong, I need to go back to UK.
It's your mindset, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, yeah, just not letting other people affect you. Or I guess, are those people who say that, are they people who are potentially wishing that they created that lifestyle for themselves but were too afraid to, and justifying why it didn't happen? Or
no, I tend to find, because it is more unusual that someone isn't there. So if something goes wrong, then it's easy to say, well, it's because you weren't here. It's an easy blame, because like, well, all my other clients are here. It doesn't happen with them, and with you that did happen. So I'll always try in that instance and say, well, look, well, what else? Why specifically are we saying this? And it's just an easy thing to say.
Also, it's like the owner of like say Aldi isn't at every single shop, and things go wrong. So why, like, we wouldn't blame him and be like, well, you weren't at that shop in London
fixing the lights.
Yeah. That is always a process that wasn't in place, or a policy that we didn't have, or a decision that hadn't been made, or a plan that hadn't been drawn up, or it's always a process problem. And not everyone might see it that way, but if you see your business as a machine, as a set of cogs and a conveyor belt, then it helps us take away some of the emotion and be like, all right, well, what was the little bit that wasn't working, and let's fix that. And not everyone's going to see it that way. And that's okay. Like, sometimes you might be like, okay, well, it probably means that me and that person possibly shouldn't work together again. And that's okay. But even if you were in the UK, right, you'd make that decision. So again, it's got nothing to do with you not being in the UK.
I feel like, this is a bit random, but my mind went there, that there needs to be a Barbie that is of Julie, that is like a new role model for other girls. You could be a property investor and be a nomad, and you can be a mom. At the same time, why not? Hang out with elephants in Chiang Mai and somewhere else. It's awesome. I love what you've designed, and yeah, hopefully we will be somewhere around the same part of the world together, maybe next year, and meet in person. That would be so lovely.
Awesome. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
Okay, so I'm on Instagram I am at Julie Talbot. So yeah, I'm on Instagram and I am on Facebook as well. I try and send out a weekly-ish email just on
Love your emails.
Oh, love the email.
Love it.
Oh,
It started me up. Yeah.
the ups and the downs. I call it the roller coaster, really, of growing a portfolio in the UK from outside the UK. Yeah, try and do that as well.
Amazing. We're going to pop all of the workshop to Julie's workshop down below. Handles. Is there anything else that we've not included? I think those were it. Yeah. So if you are looking to create
Location freedom first.
then reach out to Julie, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on it as well. Send us a DM or leave a comment below. We'd love to chat more about it, because we do feel like there is a huge movement, or at least maybe that's what our social media bubble is showing us, that there's a lot of entrepreneurs and investors who are looking to see how they can live outside of the UK but still operate their business
In the UK,
inside the UK. And Julie's nailed it by just creating these systems and procedures and what was it, operating? What do you call it? I love the words you use. It's like a machine or something. These machines that make your life work.
But these are things that it's not magic. It's not rocket science. It's just we can do it. I'm not special. I'm a kid from Salford. But I guess if you've got this is really cheesy, right? But if your why is big enough, you find a way. And if there's a reason why you want not everyone wants location freedom, but if there's a reason that you do and you want that enough, then it like everything, it comes down to the process, the systems, the habits, the routines, and then they get you get you there without having any rocket science.
Yeah. Wow.
Thank you. We've been so excited to have you on this podcast today.
I mean,
honestly,
I think what you guys are doing is you're a total breath of fresh air. I love your approach to things. I love how you share things. So thank you for doing what you do for the world.
Thank you guys. I think we're creating a new era of just property investors that we just want to hang out with
and find more of. So thanks, Julie.
Okay, Julie, we'll see you hopefully sometime soon on some good planet.